Look down at your feet right now. Go ahead, actually look. Are your ankles the same size they were this morning? Or have they quietly changed shape while you were sitting here without you noticing a thing? Most people never ask that question. They just accept that legs get heavier, feet get colder, and socks leave a mark by evening, as if that's simply what happens when you get older. It isn't.
Swollen legs are not
and in
just
the
a
next
part of
few
aging.
minutes, you're going to find out
better.
something almost nobody your age has ever been told about their own legs. Not whether you should move them, but whether the way you've been moving them has actually been working at all. There's a 1-minute test coming up in a moment that will tell you exactly where you stand. And then a single detail, one most exercise videos leave out entirely, that changes everything about what you do next.
Hello again,
this is Senior Leg Health.
This keeps our legs
And if you've
healthy.
ever looked down at your ankles at the end of the day and wondered why they look different than they did that morning, you are exactly who this video was made for. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you're going to know something about your own circulation that most doctors never take the time to explain in a 15-minute appointment. Let's start with where you stand today. No standing up, no equipment, nothing to buy, just 5 honest answers right here in your chair. You're starting with 5 points.
It's been 5
I'm going
weeks
to name
today.
5 things. For every one that's true for you, take away 1 point. By the end, you'll have a number, and that number is going to tell you something real about what's happening inside your legs right now, whether you've noticed it or not. Question 1.
Persistent swelling should never
In the
be
evening,
ignored.
do you notice a
Take a
mark
moment
left
to
behind by your socks? Or do your shoes feel a little tighter than they did that morning? If yes, subtract a point. That's usually fluid settling low in the leg because it isn't being pushed back up the way it should be. Question 2. Do you ever wake up in the middle of the night because of a sudden sharp cramp seizing your calf out of nowhere? If yes, take away another point. A muscle that isn't getting steady blood flow tends to lock up exactly like that, especially overnight, when you've been still the longest. Question 3. Are your feet cold to the touch even when the rest of the room feels perfectly warm, even when you're wearing socks? If yes, subtract a point. Cold feet almost always mean blood isn't completing its full round trip through the leg efficiently. Question 4. By the end of an ordinary day, not a big hike, nothing strenuous, just normal, sitting, errands, standing at the counter, a bit of walking, do your legs start to feel heavy, almost like you're dragging small weights behind you? If yes, take away 1 more point. Question 5. Have you noticed new bluish, thread-like veins near the surface of your skin that simply weren't there a few years back? If so, subtract your final point. Now look at your number. If you landed on 5, your circulation is doing its job well, and everything you're about to learn will help you keep it that way for years to come. If you're sitting at 3 or 4, your legs are sending you an early, entirely manageable signal, nothing urgent, just useful information. And if you're at 2 or below, please don't let that number sit heavy on you. Circulation responds to the right kind of movement faster than almost anything else in the body, and that's genuinely good news, not bad news. Go ahead, pause for a second and drop your number in the comments. Tell us where you're watching from too, we love seeing that. Hold on to that number because in 3 weeks it's going to tell you something completely different, and I'll show you exactly why once you know what's actually happening under the skin. I'll tell you why this matters so much to me. A viewer wrote in not long ago and said she'd spent years assuming her swollen ankles were just her body getting older, something to quietly live with, the way you live with gray hair or reading glasses. She never once thought to ask whether something specific was happening inside her legs that she could actually influence. That's the assumption I want to gently take apart today. Not because getting older doesn't change things, it does, but because so much of what people write off as inevitable is actually a mechanical problem with a mechanical fix, hiding in plain sight the whole time. Now let me talk about why any of this happens in the first place, because once you understand it, everything else in this video is going to click into place instantly, including why the exercise you may already be doing hasn't been giving you the results it should. Here's something most people never think about. Your heart has an easy job sending blood down into your legs. Gravity does most of that work for it, pulling blood downhill without any real effort. The hard part, the part nobody ever mentions, is the return trip. Getting blood from your feet all the way back up to your heart, against gravity, every single minute of every single day, is genuinely difficult work. And your heart, on its own, isn't strong enough to pull that off alone. So your body built a second pump. Inside your leg veins, there are small one-way valves whose only job is to stop blood from sliding backward once it's been pushed upward. And the thing that actually pushes it upward in the first place isn't your heart at all. It's your leg muscles. Every time they tighten, they squeeze those deep veins the way a hand squeezes a tube of toothpaste. And that squeeze is what forces blood up and out toward your heart. Think about that for a second. Your calf muscles have been quietly acting as a second heart your entire life, and almost nobody ever tells you that. Doctors sometimes call it the calf muscle pump, and if you picture it clearly, it's actually a beautiful piece of design. A network of muscle, valve, and vein working together, completely without your awareness, every time you take a single step. You've been walking around your whole life with a second circulatory engine built into your lower legs, and it only asks one thing of you in return, that you actually use it correctly, which is exactly the part almost everyone gets wrong. When you sit for long stretches watching television, riding in a car, reading in a chair by the window, that squeezing stops completely. Blood starts to settle low in the leg, pooling right where gravity wants it to. Over months and years, if the valves get a little weaker too, that settling becomes swelling, heaviness, cold feet, cramps, and those visible veins you may have already noticed. This isn't damage you did to yourself, and it isn't a sign that something is wrong with you. It's simply what happens to a pump that isn't being used the way it was built to be used. Now, if you've watched leg circulation videos before, you've probably already been told the fix.
Feel that stretch?
Do some seated marching, point your toes, lift your heels a certain number of times a day. That advice isn't wrong. Moving your legs is the right instinct. But here's what almost nobody explains. Most people doing those exact movements every day are still barely activating the pump, because the part that actually matters was never the number of times you move, it's how you move. And that one difference is the entire rest of this video. Here is the first and most important piece, and I want you to actually do this with me right here in your chair, not just listen to it. Feet
Poor
flat on the
posture
floor,
causes strain.
knees
Ideal
bent
setup
naturally,
keeps feet
nothing
flat.
forced. Now lift both heels off the ground, the way you would in a basic calf raise. But here's the change, and it's the whole reason this video exists. Don't come straight back down.
2,
At the very top,
3.
where your calf muscle is squeezed tightest, hold that position for a slow count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Now lower back down slowly, over about 2 full seconds. Don't just drop. Ease into it, like you're setting something fragile down. That 3-second hold at the top is the entire game. Here's a picture worth keeping in your mind. Think of your vein like a soft tube filled with fluid. A quick tap on that tube barely moves anything inside it at all. The fluid just sloshes a little and settles right back where it started. But a full, sustained squeeze pushes that fluid a real distance upward, and it gives the one-way valve above it enough time to catch what just moved before it has any chance of sliding back down. Speed was never the variable that mattered here. Depth was. It always was. Let's do a full round together right now. Lift your heels. Hold. 2, 3. Lower slowly. Again. Lift. Hold. 2, 3. Lower. Do that 8 times. Rest for a few seconds and let your calves relax. Then do one more round of 8. That's the whole exercise. 2 rounds, 8 each, with a real honest hold at the top of every single one. And once that feels natural, there's a second detail, one almost nobody teaches, that makes it work even better. As you rise into that hold, breathe out slowly through it, like you're gently blowing on something hot. As you lower back down, breathe in. Most people, without ever realizing it, hold their breath the moment they tense a muscle. It's a natural reflex wired into all of us. But holding your breath tightens your chest and stomach in a way that actually works against the very return flow you're trying to create. Breathing out through the squeeze keeps your whole body loose and cooperating with the movement instead of quietly fighting it. It's a small detail. Almost nobody mentions it. And it changes how the whole exercise feels within the first few rounds. You'll notice it almost immediately. Now, let me combine this with something you may already do, but probably never combined with actual movement before. If you've ever propped your feet up on a pillow or a stool in the evening to reduce swelling, you were using gravity correctly, but only passively, letting it do all the work alone. Here's the upgrade. The next time your feet are elevated, even slightly, above the level of your hips, do the exact same 3-second hold squeeze right there in that position. Gravity is already helping blood move downhill toward your heart. Adding an active squeeze on top of that doesn't just add two good habits together, it compounds them, because now you have gravity and muscle both working in the same direction, at the same time, instead of taking turns. I want to pause here and say something directly, because you might be thinking, isn't this just the same exercise I've already been shown a dozen times? The movement does look familiar, and that's true, and that's completely fine. What's different isn't the shape of the motion, it's the timing hidden inside it. If you've been doing quick heel raises for months and still seeing swelling by evening, this is very likely the missing detail, not a sign that everything you were doing before was pointless or wasted effort. You were close. This just finishes the job. And I want to be honest with you about something else too, because you deserve honesty and not a sales pitch. This isn't a cure, and nobody can promise your legs will look a certain way after doing this. What it is a far more precise way to use a mechanism your body has already been relying on, quietly, every single day of your life. If this is the first time someone's actually explained the hold, not just the movement itself, go ahead and tap that like button right now. It genuinely helps this reach more people who've been doing the basic version for months and quietly wondering why it never fully worked for them. Now, here's the part that decides whether any of this becomes a real habit instead of something you do once, feel good about, and quietly forget by next Tuesday. Most advice out there tells you to move your legs every 20 or 30 minutes, like clockwork. Almost nobody actually does that, because a timer isn't a habit. It's a chore you have to remember, fight with, and eventually lose to. Here's a better way, and it's almost embarrassingly simple once you hear it. Pick 3 moments that already happen in your day without fail, moments you never have to think twice about. Maybe it's every time a commercial break starts. Maybe it's every time you get up to refill your water glass. Maybe it's every time you check your phone, which, let's be honest, is probably more often than you'd like to admit. Attach 1 full round of the squeeze, lift, hold 3, lower to each of those moments. You're not adding a new task to remember. You're quietly attaching this to something your day already does automatically, without effort, without a reminder, without willpower. That's the real difference between a habit that survives past the first week and one that quietly disappears by Thursday afternoon, the way so many good intentions do. And once that habit sticks, there's a next step waiting for whenever you're ready for it, not before. Once this starts to feel easy, no shaking in your legs, full range of motion, comfortable holds through all your rounds without straining, you can take it further. This is something the basic version of this exercise never gives you at all, because it only ever teaches one fixed level of difficulty, forever, with nowhere to go. Here are 3 ways forward, each one a little more demanding than the last. The first is to lean your shins very slightly forward as you hold at the top, which increases the range your ankle moves through and deepens the squeeze even further. Just a small forward lean is enough. You're not trying to tip yourself out of the chair, only asking the calf to work through a slightly longer path than before. The second is to try the movement 1 leg at a time instead of both together, which asks more from each individual leg and builds real targeted strength, since you can no longer let one leg quietly do more of the work than the other. The third, for those who feel steady and want more of a challenge, is pressing the ball of your foot down into a rolled towel while you hold, adding light resistance directly into the squeeze itself. Similar in spirit to how a physical therapist might add a resistance band to a familiar movement once the basic version stops being a real challenge. None of these 3 are a race, and none of them are required. Some people
Compare
are
the
perfectly
basic raise
content doing
with
the
the loaded
basic
variation.
two-legged version for years and getting excellent results from it. Progression exists for the people who want it, not as a requirement for everyone watching. I want to be careful here, because balance matters far more than pace at this stage in life, and I never want speed to come at the cost of safety.
Lift
Only
your
try
heels
the
slowly,
single-leg version
hold
seated,
at the top,
with a hand resting
now
on the
lower.
arm of your chair for support, just in case. If you have any diagnosed heart or vascular condition, please get a clear green light from your doctor before adding resistance or single-leg work of any kind. And if anything ever feels unsteady, dizzy, or uncomfortable in any way, stop right there and go back to the basic two-legged version without a second thought. There is no rush here, and there never has been. So how do you actually know when you're ready to move to the next level? Not by counting weeks on a calendar, by one simple, honest check. Can you hold the top of every single squeeze for the full 3 seconds, through every single round, without your legs shaking and without losing your form even a little? If yes, you're ready to try the next progression whenever you feel like it. If not quite yet, staying exactly where you are is absolutely the right call, and there is no failure hiding anywhere in that decision. Now let's go back to your score from the very start of this video, the one you dropped in the comments a few minutes ago. Whatever number you wrote down, here's what I want you to do next. Practice this, the hold, the breath, the elevated combination, attached to your 3 daily moments for the next 3 weeks, no exceptions, no skipping. Then retake that exact same test. Most people who do this consistently notice less evening swelling around the ankle, fewer cramps waking them in the middle of the night, and legs that simply feel lighter by the time they sit down for dinner. And if you'd already built the basic habit of moving before today, you're not starting over from nothing. You're simply about to find out what that habit was actually capable of the whole time, once it finally had the missing piece. One honest note before we close, because I care more about you being safe than I care about this video sounding perfect. If you try this consistently for several weeks and notice no change at all, or if you ever experience sudden swelling in only one leg, chest pain, or shortness of breath, that is not a moment for another exercise video. That is a moment to call your doctor today, without waiting. This routine is here to support healthy movement and give you a better tool than the one you had before. It is not, and was never meant to be, a replacement for real medical care, especially if you've already been diagnosed with a vascular or heart condition. Here's what we covered together today. You checked in honestly with your own legs using a simple 5-point self-check, one that only took a minute but told you something real. You learned why the true engine behind healthy circulation was never your heart alone, but the muscles in your legs, quietly working as a second pump this entire time, whether anyone ever told you or not. And instead of just being told to move more, the way you probably have been for years, you learned exactly how to move, with a real, honest hold, paired breathing that works with your body instead of against it, smarter positioning that stacks 2 habits into one, a habit that actually survives past the first week, and a clear path to get stronger over time whenever you're ready for it. Your legs have carried you through decades of mornings, walks, stairs, grocery trips, and ordinary days you probably don't even remember individually anymore, and they are nowhere near finished yet. A few minutes of the right kind of movement, done with real intention instead of just repetition for repetition's sake, is how you keep them carrying you for many, many more mornings still to come. If this gave you something you hadn't heard before, something that actually explained the missing piece instead of just repeating the same advice, share it with someone you know who's been doing the basic version and quietly wondering why their legs still feel heavy by evening. And if you want to keep building real independence and real strength in the years ahead, stay with us here at Senior Leg Health. I'll see you in the next one.